Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is the continuation video of the last tutorial I uploaded. In my last tutorial, I taught you guys how to draft this dress. I'm so sorry it took so long before filming the sewing tutorial. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. For this tutorial, I used 4 yards of shiny face material. So after drafting on my pattern paper, I went ahead to transfer the pattern paper to my fabric, and these are the two front pieces. So I added allowance on this center because I'll be joining it to the other side of the front. I added half an inch on all sides, as you can see, all the way to the base. Okay, so after doing that, I went ahead to remove my pattern paper. So I have 2 pieces for this side of the front because I want to use this as my lining also. So I'm going to fold them right sides facing right side. As you can see, I'll use my pins to hold everything down, and I'll head over to my sewing machine to sew all the way around, leaving the armhole open. The armhole is where I'm going to use to turn everything inside out. So this is the other side of the front piece. I also added allowance at the center front, at the armhole area, the shoulder area, and the base. And I also have 2 pieces for this side because I'll be using the fabric as the lining. So I'm going to use my pins to hold everything down. And then I'll also head over to my sewing machine to sew the center, the side, the base, leaving the armhole and the shoulders open. Okay, so after sewing, you go ahead and give it a good press. So for the back piece, guys, I don't have enough fabric to cut out a lining piece, so I'll be using facing to turn the neckline. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut out my facing. I'm going to place it right side facing right side, and I'm going to pin. After pinning, I'm going to sew, and I'll turn it towards the wrong side of the fabric, and I'll use my hemming gum to just hold everything in place. After doing that, you can take in the darts for the back. So I realized that I didn't take in darts while I was drafting, so I don't have darts at the back of my dress at all. But if you left your dart intake allowance, you can go ahead and also take in your darts at this point. So I've sewn the 2 front piece, and this is what they look like. This is the back and this is the front. So next thing I'm going to do now is to join them together. So I'm going to place them right sides facing right side, just like I'm doing. Okay, before you do that, you are going to take in your darts. So I'm going to first of all take in the side dart, and I'll take in the main darts, and you know that the dart is just on one side of the dress. So use your tape to just mark out where the dart is and transfer it to your fabric. Okay, so that is what I'm doing. You just measure from the paper and transfer what you measure to the fabric. So I'm taking the side dart, and I'm also taking the other dart. So I'll head over to my sewing machine to stitch my dart in place. I've done that for this part, which only has the bust darts, and for this side I took the straight dart and I also took the bust dart. So after doing that, this is what I have. Just go ahead and iron your darts in place so everything lays flat after taking it. So now I'm going to place them right side facing right side, and I'm going to sew using half an inch. After sewing, guys, this is what I have. So we're going to also work on the back. I've gone ahead to turn the neckline using my facing. So what I'll do now is to sew my zipper to the back. Okay, so just go ahead and sew your zipper. I've done that, guys, and this is what I have. So if you have your dart intake allowance, don't forget to take in your dart. Okay, so after sewing my zipper in place, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to join both front and back piece together. So I'm going to join them on the shoulders. Okay, I'll open up the back shoulder and I'll place the front shoulder on it, and then I'll go ahead and sew. After doing that, I'll also sew my sleeves in place. Okay, so I'll remove my pins from the sleeves, and then I'm going to notch the center, and then after sewing the shoulder, I'm going to place the sleeves on the armhole area. I'll sew all the way around, and I'll also sew the side of my dress using my stitching allowance. I'm done stitching the sleeves in place. I've also sewn the sides. I've hemmed the back, and I went ahead to give my dress a good press. This is what I have. I left a little bit of opening on the sleeves area where I'll be adding my ruffles to. If you don't have enough fabric to cut out your lining piece for the back, just like me, you can hem the base of the back. So the next thing I'll do is to place my tape on the base, and I'll measure what I have, which I'll be using to cut out my ruffles. So whatever you have, you can times it by 3, by 4, by 5, depending on how full you want it to be. And then you can cut out the length of your ruffle. So the length of my fabric on fold is 4.5 inches, meaning once I open it up is about 9 inches. So the length of my ruffle is going to be 4.5 inches. Half an inch is going to be for the stitching allowance, while 4 inches is going to be the length of my ruffle. So for the wideness, I went ahead to times what I measured from the base by 4. Okay, so that is how long I want, that's how full, sorry, I want the ruffles to be. So my fabric is really long. You can see me measuring it. It is very long. Okay, so it now depends on how full you want your ruffle to be. So you can join as much fabric as you want. You can see my joining, but once you gather them together, it's not going to look like you joined your fabric anymore. So on the start of this ruffle, I want to make it small. I don't want it to have this shape that it has right now. So I'm just going to cut it out a little bit like this, okay, inward, just so it has a nice shape from the beginning. Okay, so after cutting it out, guys, I'm now going to head over to my sewing machine to start gathering this on my dress. Okay, so after cutting this end, you can also cut the other end so it has the same start and finishing. I don't know if you understand. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and start gathering this to the base of the dress. You can also gather it to fit the base of the dress, and then you sew it. So it depends on what you want to do. So for me, I'm just going to place it on the dress, and I'll just arrange it and gather it all the way till I get to the end. So guys, after gathering the ruffle to the base of my dress, this is what I have, and you can see how full it is. So the next thing we'll do now is to work on the upper part. So I wanted to attempt the exact ruffle that was done on the thumbnail, but mine didn't come out exactly like that because I did not have enough fabric to make it as big as the one on the thumbnail. So what I did was to cut out my fabric just like we did for the base. This time the length of my ruffle is 6 inches, which is one of the mistake I made. It's not as big as the other one. I should have made it bigger. So once I fold it, what I'll have is 3 inches. So I'm going to open up the zipper, and I'll split my ruffle into two. I'll start from the center to the zipper area, and I'll start from the zipper area to the center on the other side. Okay, so I want to have two different ruffles for the front. Okay, so I have two fabric here. What I'll do is to also repeat the same thing that I did while I was cutting out the ruffle for the base. I'll just trim off the beginning and the end of the ruffle just like you see me doing. I'll give it this particular shape, and then I'll head over to my sewing machine, and I'll start gathering this to the fabric just like this. Okay, so place your ruffle like this, and then go ahead and gather. Okay, gather in place. After doing for this end, I'll turn my dress to the other side, and I'll also gather to the other end. I'm done gathering, guys, and this is what I have. You can see what I mean. It's not big, it's not as big as the one on the base. Maybe I should have used about 10 inches, then folded into two, it would be 5 inches. Or I should have used 12 inches, folded into two, to be 8 inches. So it can be as big as the one on the thumbnail. At this point, I did not even have enough fabric to gather to the sleeves. So I first of all went ahead to hem my sleeves to give it that neat finishing. And this is the fabric I'll be using. You can see it's really short. This is 3 inches. On fold it is 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to manage it, okay, and just gather it all the way around the sleeves, okay. So after gathering, this is what I had. What I did after this was to join all my scrap fabric together, making it into a long fabric, and then I also gathered it on this one just to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so the last thing I did was to overlock because this fabric sheds a lot. After doing that, I fixed my cover button and I gave the dress a good press. So that is all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.